All right, so this is an updated little video on the A's ballpark saga, the relocation saga. Clark County balks at A's ballpark bonding terms. There seems to be a little bit of an issue with the funds. It says negotiations between Clark County and the Oakland Athletics are exposing some gaps in the overall project funding plan. And I just want to stress to people, this is totally normal. When you're talking about relocation, so many things have to be ironed out. There was a story a few weeks ago about the A's possibly having to pivot sites. They've done that. Now their new site is at the Tropicana, where they will be ripping down that old hotel. You can see it says the A's have taken an action-filled path to a new 30,000, I think they added one too many zeros there, capacity Vegas ballpark, beginning with a binding agreement to buy part of the former Wild Wild West resort site for ballpark and development. That $1.5 billion plan called for $500 million in state and Clark County funding. But after some pushback, the A's shifted their sights to the Tropicana resort site. There, the team and Bally's announced a binding agreement to tear down the historic resort and replace it with the $1.5 billion retractable roof ballpark with a capacity of 30,000 and a public ask of $395 million via Clark County bonding and state taxes. So they brought down their asking by $105 million. For the state taxes. It was a nice plan as far as plans go, but in the process of negotiating the A's ballpark bonding terms, the actual state and Clark County offers were reduced, but not the team's financial ask. And with less than 3 weeks in the Nevada legislative session, the pressure is on to reach a deal. So it seems to be a little bit of holdup. The state is willing to issue $195 million in tax credit and have Clark County bond the remainder to be paid back by increasing tax revenues generated by the ballpark. But according to the Nevada Independent, Clark County commissioners are hesitant in bonding the full amount, unwilling to dip into the county's reserve fund in case ballpark tax revenues fall short in covering the repayments. So that leaves a gap of $105 million between what the state and Clark County are willing to pay versus the $395 million the A's are seeking. So this is something that is not a big gap. $105 million, it seems like a lot of money, but we're talking about an overall $1.5 billion project. This is another one of those hitches in the road. They've got 3 weeks to negotiate this. It would be very surprising if something could not be reached. If it's only $105 million, you go through negotiations, you each throw out a number. The A's say this, Clark County says something else. We'll pay some of it if you do this, if you give us more money here. It's going to all get worked out very likely in the future. But they do have a plan B, which is apparently still part of the discussions. When the A's announced the move, the team and Oakland reps were literally in a meeting to cover the final points of a deal to enable Howard Terminal. Now, with the future of the A's ballpark in doubt, the Oakland mayor says that the two sides are so close to a deal, they could pick up where talks were dropped and come to an agreement. The A's have proposed a downtown Howard Terminal waterfront development featuring $12 billion in private investment, including $1 billion for a new 35,000 capacity ballpark to replace the Coliseum. So here's an interesting little twist. The Oakland mayor coming out, they don't want to lose the A's. Apparently, they were very close to a deal before the move, actually meeting and negotiating the final points to enable the Howard Terminal project. Seems like there's a lot of pressure within this window between Clark County and the A's to come to some sort of agreement. And realistically, you would expect the billion-dollar owner to cover this, but we know how that all works either way. I do expect this to get worked out. Kind of an interesting little point, though. They were very close to coming to that Howard Terminal, and you can see the renderings on that. I'm not a big fan of that rendering of the Howard Terminal project. I like the original ones back in 2017, the newer ones with the green. I'm not about the green, and it says 35,000 seats. Where? Looks like it's a minor league park to me, but that's the whole Oakland, California thing. You have to understand that, but that is the A's situation. There is pressure on a deal to be worked out, on the $105 million gap. You've got to close it. Again, you would think the billionaire would cover it, but you know how those things work. And then I did want to talk about this. So this was happening last night. I saw it on social media. Where's the baseball? So this is the Mets broadcast, and according to Mets fans, they have some type of green screen ad, which I'm guessing that's what the mattress firm is. That's a green screen, and the baseball, any pitch that's high, disappears because of the green screen. I mean, what is going on there? Let me be honest. Last night, I should have 100% bet on the Mets-Guardians game. I could feel something. It was good weather. It was two good teams. It was a big crowd. It was a Friday night. Always bet the over. I knew it was going to be a crazy game. It was so obvious. The Mets end up winning 10-9. But yeah, that is horrible. I don't know what's going on with that. And then just getting back to the A's, it says A's officials have also released the results of a poll that show Clark County registered voters mostly supported building a stadium for the A's so long as you didn't tell them who would be paying for it. Well, it is interesting because there have been a lot of local Las Vegas residents on Twitter that are angry that this relocation is happening, and they want an MLB team, but they want the expansion team, and it does make sense if the A's are going to keep their branding. I'm not sure the green and yellow really fits in with the whole Vegas vibe, to where if I'm doing a Vegas team, I would want like some type of gold and gray, like the Golden Knights, you know. The Raiders kept theirs. The Raiders have some of the best colors in football. You can't change anything about the Raiders. The Raiders are, with the A's, I still like the A's colors because they're unique, the green. But so we've got local Las Vegas residents who they would rather just have an expansion team. They don't want the A's, mainly because I would think due to the color scheme. I mean, the A's are terrible right now. But if you're not getting them until 2025 with the new stadium coming in 2027, that gives you such a major advantage just to completely rebuild your farm system in the span of 3 or 4 years. And by the time the new stadium opens in Las Vegas, you should have a team that's very competitive with a really good young core. Of course, it's not that easy. You have to actually build it. But if you do have multiple years to build it, that is a big kind of leg up. And then apparently Bally's Corporation has sent a memo to its employees saying that they want to build a new hotel next to the A's stadium. That's exactly what Las Vegas needs, another hotel. But yeah, that's pretty typical what we see from stadiums. The district gets developed. Doesn't seem like they have a lot of acres to work with. But either way, we'll have to see if that ends up happening. Just to summarize it all, there is a bit of a hiccup when it comes to the A's funding. Looks like there's a $105 million gap, and there is a little bit of pressure on this situation to make sure something can be worked out, because apparently, according to Oakland's mayor, they were very close to a Howard Terminal deal, a $12 billion development project that would have featured the billion-dollar stadium. But I think, again, you deal with these things. It's not easy relocating. These are just negotiations, right? It's not like there's a big issue, but if something were to happen, they're saying that they would go back to Howard Terminal possibly because they were very close to a deal there. I don't see that happening. It feels like the bridge is completely burned if they somehow stayed in Oakland. John Fisher, he would have to sell the team or like start spending a crazy amount of money to try and win the fans back. It's just unrealistic, and it doesn't seem plausible at this point based on how far along that. Well, actually, I guess they're really not that far along, that we don't even have renderings for the new Vegas A's stadium. But I'm sure if this ends up happening and all the money's in the place and it gets announced, we will get the A's official plan on when they plan to go to the minor league ballpark, which is probably going to be in 2025 after the Coliseum leases up. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.